Hello. Hi, this is Kathy Frey here from IMCO, the International Integrated Maternity Healthcare Organisation, and welcome along to this webinar and a part of our Natural Maternity Health series. And say hello from Marisa. Give us a good wave.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, and Marisa is coming to us from Italy, and she is actually from Northern California. But let's just sort of go over a little bit of an intro for those of you that are not going to be watching this live. So let me just have a little look at my notes here. Oh, sorry, there's something going wrong with my screen. Hold on, everybody. Yeah, so Marisa is a certified yoga instructor, which you can tell from her environment today, which looks absolutely wonderful. And my other little notes here is that in 2008, Marisa was among the first to write a prenatal yoga training curriculum, which was honoured by the Yoga Alliance. And we'll get you, Marisa, to explain a little bit more about that, which is obviously pretty exciting stuff. And as a result, a product called Yoga for Motherhood is a credentialed prenatal yoga school and all the students there also have the opportunity, if they wish to become prenatal registered yoga teachers. So, going from that journey of the student to the teacher. So that's a pretty exciting thing as well. And Marisa has a BA from UC Berkeley, and she completed the UCSF OSHA Centre training in mindfulness, which was based in childbirth and parenting training for health professionals. Plus, she's certified by the Rudolf Steiner College in Administration for Spiritually Based Organisations, which is fascinating in itself. So what we wanted going to be particularly focusing on today are the benefits of prenatal yoga and those best practices during this crazy, insane current a global pandemic. Now, hopefully, it's not going to be too long and some of this might become a little bit irrelevant in the world as we all move on and return to normal. Is that even possible right now? We're all asking ourselves. So we'll just continue on the basis that this information might be needed for a while yet. So Marisa blends yoga traditions with the current culture of today to lead individuals with an interest in the benefits of practicing yoga. And Marisa also facilitates events and trainings and provides yogic lifestyle tips online to help as many as possible around the world. And you're a mother of 2 daughters, I understand as well. And how old are they? We're always curious as mums to know these things.
Yes, they're 14 and 16 right now.
Oh, lovely. Okay, yeah. And look, I know I just said lovely and other people are going, 14 and 16 girls. No, I got to say, our kids are a little bit older than that now, but I adored going through the teenage bit. It was just great. It was fascinating watching them, but, really evolve into their own people of who they are and what they stand for.
It's true. There's a lot to learn from them also because they're very, they're out in the world and they have ideas and it's very interesting. So
and as they're just not supposed to be facsimiles of us, and sometimes that's a little bit challenging. But it's an amazing journey to watch. Certainly when they are really little, it's absolutely, particularly fascinating as they do things so quickly over that first year. It's amazing journey that they go through physically, but boy, it does it again in puberty. A lot of things happening pretty quickly. So Marisa's yoga credentials have helped her to help understand experiencing that powerful capacity of yoga to transform. And of course it is there for everybody, but having that specialization under the maternity umbrella is so important. I think that probably the most that a lot of women being pregnant for the first time when they are already enjoying yoga as part of their life, is the fact that they will have been in classes at times where there would have been women who are pregnant, and their yoga instructor would say, "Oh, but you, Mary, or whoever, you need to do this slightly differently." And that's pretty much the end of our knowledge at the beginning of that journey. And then you've also got women who have never really contemplated yoga at all. But often when you become pregnant, you suddenly feel like you need to be a whole lot more holistic, and you feel like you have to care for this body extra specially. And so tell us perhaps a little bit about what you see as that really common kind of journey that women go through, sort of from the beginning to the end of that pregnancy with their yoga experience. What's those commonalities that you see?
Well, I think that all women and really all people that practice yoga and continue to practice it is that they're having a transformative experience that allows them to grow and evolve as human beings. The practice itself can help moms, new moms, when they first become pregnant, um, learn to center themselves. It will calm their nervous system and help them relax. And when they're more centered and grounded in their own body, then they have an opportunity to connect more deeply with their baby. Because the baby is also, the unborn child, the baby in the womb is having an experience also. They're conscious, they're awake. This early period of life, which is called the primal period, has an incredible impact on them for the rest of their life. There's like an imprint or a pattern that's formed based upon their experience from conception, really even preconception, all the way through the first year of life. So when women practice yoga during pregnancy, whether they are able to start at the very beginning of their pregnancy and carry it all the way through, or maybe they start later, because lots of women start something like yoga when they're feeling like they're pregnant, when they're feeling like they look pregnant, their body's moving differently, then they realize, maybe I should do something differently. And nowadays doctors recommend yoga. Like some years ago, doctors didn't know so much that they weren't recommending it. Now it's very common for them to hear. I mean, it's very common knowledge to some degree, or at least in some parts of the world, that prenatal yoga is a good thing to do, can be helpful. So anyway, whenever women begin the practice of yoga in their life, in terms of this pregnancy, maternity period, then it benefits the baby immensely. And because when the mother calms down or quiets down, is more centered, has an ability to really kind of regulate herself, then she's able to be quiet enough and really listen to the baby, because our babies are awake and conscious and trying to communicate to us from very early on. And when we can acknowledge that when we can acknowledge them and validate them, they feel loved. And then there's this beautiful bonding that happens, and this beautiful attachment from mom to baby. And then that continues on once the baby's born, then uh, through life, hopefully, until their teenage years. Still connected and bonded.
And then beyond those teenagers.
So I
Yeah.
know that we wanted to talk a little bit about, well, how does that relate to what's going on with the pandemic right now, worldwide? And what I just talked about, what I just was saying very briefly is like, why do women practice yoga and what's happening there? And it really is the mom and the baby. There's two people there. There's two life forces, life energies that are working together, and it's hugely supportive of the baby, and also wonderful for the mom. She can even feel a lot of healing when she practices yoga. During the pandemic, a lot of people, especially in the early weeks and months last spring, people felt, pregnant moms were feeling really afraid. They were afraid to go to the hospitals. It was very fearful. It was a scary. I mean, the world it's so unknown. We have no precedent for how to behave or what's happening or what the protocols are. So being pregnant, especially for the moms that were pregnant the first time, it was just even more unknowns going on. So,
Absolutely. And really just a level of fear within them that is extraordinary. Um,
yeah,
yeah, especially, as you say, this global fear for women who are pregnant. There's always you naturally carry worries because you care and you're concerned about your baby. But adding that especially when you consider that it's not a short-term thing, that the women have had their entire journeys now from preconception to pregnancy to birth and to into the postpartum entirely through this pandemic,
yeah,
which is,
completely. It's true. They're
and,
completely alone. Yeah,
and none of us, I think, at the beginning anticipated that that
right.
was going to be happening for so long for so many. Um, yeah, and of course the health system itself has been like writing things as it goes. It
Mhm.
hasn't really had a great plan in place, and so there's been all different policies taken all around the world, and in this country you're allowed just one birth support person, and in this country you're not allowed any, and then all these different things going on with these unknowns. One of the very interesting things that I've had come out in conversation over this time is how women themselves, when they've realized that birthing in a hospital, I mean, for a long time, let's face it, birthing in a hospital for a healthy woman with a normal pregnancy, at term, spontaneous labor, we know statistically that that's not the safest place for her or her baby to be. And absolutely, if somebody's got obstetric complications with themselves or the baby, or it's a premature labor, then they should be in that secondary care facility. But that acceptance of the facts on research that it wasn't the safest place to be was not always very well participated in by women, because they were like, I still think, maybe I should be at the hospital. And I understand those fears. That's really just a lack of more understanding. But right now, well, no, it really isn't. And it's been amazing how
Mhm.
women themselves have turned their own journeys around,
Mhm.
where they may have initially come into that pregnancy going, right, I'm going to have dial me up for the epidural now. I don't want to be doing this natural thing. It all sounds really revolting and painful. I don't want to do that. But in the pandemic, they're going, hell yeah, I'll find this out. I'll do this. And one of the most amazing, I think maybe things have sort of settled into a groove now of almost accepting, who knows, the best places to be. People are just confused by it. But certainly NICU has had reductions in the amounts of babies that they are looking after. It's like the one department within a hospital where the patient numbers have reduced
That's
because
wonderful. I hadn't
women,
heard that. That's wonderful.
yeah,
Wow.
and that's because women are not having labours that are being interfered
Right.
with epidurals, oxytocin drips, etc. But also because more women have been staying at home and
Yes,
not
yes. I
stressing
have
their
a good
body.
friend, yeah, a good friend and colleague in Northern California, like Berkeley, Oakland area. She has been swamped. She's a home birth midwife. She has been swamped since last spring, early on.
Yeah.
I mean, she's having to turn people away. Their practice, because she has a couple partners, has expanded exponentially, which is nice side effect. I want to share with you, just because you mentioned talking about birth and hospitals. I had a student this year who came to my prenatal yoga classes that are online, and I was with her for her first pregnancy, so this is her second pregnancy. She's in the U.S., but she's originally from Mexico, and she gave birth in the hospital in August, and she had an incredible, wonderful experience. She said it felt very safe there. It was very clean. However, she didn't go to the hospital till very late because she was uh, actually, she found out, she told me after she gave birth that she realized she had been in labor for 2 weeks before her water broke. And then once her water broke, it was only 4 hours till she gave birth,
Right.
which was
Yeah.
completely the opposite of her first birth. She told me she feels like that is because her life was so honed in because of the pandemic. She was home, she was with her young son, they did everything together. Their home life was beautiful and peaceful. She took walks regularly. She was able to come to the online Zoom-like yoga classes that I was offering and many people are offering. And in fact, there's a nice community that actually can be built around online classes, even though we have to adjust to that. Nobody's touching us. We're not actually in the room with the other moms and or babies or young children also that may be in the house. But we are together, and there is something really nice about being at home and creating a place in our homes where we can practice and be with the other children that we may have and be in community with people really anywhere in the world. So she had a good experience because she was able to, because she was we're all really forced to stay indoors, where it was beneficial to her, whereas we're so drawn, just as human beings, as adults, as moms, to be out in the world and doing. We're so responsible. We keep working, we keep shopping, we're caring for everyone, we're doing fun things. But actually during pregnancy, so nice if we can really completely change our pace. And yoga is one way that this can help us, outside of the pandemic.
Absolutely. Yeah, you just so summarized that. Those that are live with us, because a lot of our followers watch this later in their own time, but those that are live with us today, we'd love to hear whereabouts in the world you are from as well, and what your role is as a health professional, or maybe you're a mum expecting. So, do feel free to go into the chat section, which should be down the bottom of your screen, and let us know that. And also, if you've got any particular questions about prenatal yoga, or about those best practices during the pandemic, please do type them into the Q&A section, and we'll make sure that Marisa gets those answered. And the Q&A is again down the bottom of the screen there for you, or well, depending on your screen, it usually is at the bottom. So tell us, Marisa, specific, if we divide the topic into the general benefits of prenatal yoga, or hints and tips that you may have around that, versus and then we'll kind of add that other layer in about the best practices during pandemic. So talk to us just about general prenatal yoga.
Yeah, like why we do it and what the benefits are of prenatal yoga, for example. Mm-hmm. So with prenatal yoga, like I was mentioning earlier, when we can support the mom, then the baby, who is very conscious, very present, very much alive, gets the benefits also, so that the baby is developing and growing in an ideal environment. Some of the things that we can do in terms of yoga during pregnancy are things like creating space and room in the torso so that the baby can grow as full and as large as the baby wants to or needs to. And it also, by extending and elongating the torso, we also make room for the placenta and all the internal organs of the mother. The concept of space I like to share with people as soon as I can around that as a benefit for yoga, because we need to create space in our physical body, and many of the yoga practices or the yoga postures help create length and room and space. But also this idea of space is that we need to create space in our life for this new entity coming into the world, for another child, another part of our family. And additionally, during the pandemic, we need to create space in our home, right? So that is one reason why I've set myself up here for all of you in my practice space. If you have super tight quarters where you live, there's just really no room for a yoga practice, you could consider that place right alongside your bed, because you basically need about the length of your height if you're laying down. And generally, right by your bed is, usually that space is open. But creating a sacred space, space in general is sacred when we have a positive intention for its use. So creating a sacred space and keeping it there, if you possibly can, would be ideal. So in your space, you would want the props that you have, or I have here this couch cushions because I don't have any bolsters where I'm living right now. You can use beach towels or books in place of blocks, beach towels in place of yoga blankets, things to support the practice that you're going to do. And I do think that online programs are very good. Also books, it's a way that you can connect with some basic structural information about yoga for pregnancy and then apply it to, to your own body. Classes I think are more ideal than books, but both are great. So creating space in those three ways is number one. And when I talk about space for the yoga poses, we could do an example right now. If you just sit upright wherever you are, you can be sitting in a chair or on the floor or wherever you are, and then just begin to lengthen your torso. Okay, I can take this off. Lengthen your torso from bottom to top. So you're extending upright. And when you begin to lift upright from the lower body, don't grip your belly in, especially if you're pregnant, but just be aware of this lower portion of your trunk and extend upright. And when you extend from the bottom first, then the middle gets a lift, and then the chest lifts, and then the collarbones can broaden and relax your shoulders. And so just by simple sitting position, applying some effort and energy to yourself, you can feel that you're getting more length and space. So then if you know some of the yoga postures, like the standing poses, for example, standing pose, let me just say that, then you want to create and keep length and extension in your torso the whole time that you're practicing that. Same as if you're going to do a spinal twist, if you're going to turn to one side, you want to turn to a side where everything is open and broad, keep an extension and just turning one way, but you can practice that now. And come back to center, and then you could turn the other way. So beginning to notice your torso and try to extend it, and right now we're twisting, helps you also connect more deeply with your body and your baby, which is right here in your body when you're pregnant. And that's a really good tip, I can tell you, for yoga practice on your own. I want to keep going though. I have actually a few, unless you have questions, I have a few things.
I love particularly your comment about creating that space that in the home, meaning a place perhaps, is that this is the place that I do my yoga. This is and it lives there, and it's in fact you can do the same, use that same place as your space potentially for just a few bits of meditation through the day as well, don't you think? I know of for example of a lady where she created her place as her space was just this sort of little bit of foyer by her stairs, and every time she sort of walked past it during the day, she's going, oh, do I have 5 minutes? I'll just lie down for 5 minutes. And I really like that. It's such a simple little idea, but it's so effective.
Yes, Kathy. And so if you can actually keep your spot set up, you're more likely to go there and practice. And then I just want to say, speak to something you mentioned in the very beginning, and that's that, maybe what we're going to talk about today during the pandemic won't be relevant, hopefully in a couple of months or something, but actually the idea of a home practice, it will help you for the rest of your life. As soon as we can go out and join the world more deeply, be in greater community, and be at retreats and trainings and festivals with other like-minded people, great. But I think if we can still keep that special sacred space where we can do our own home practice, we're going to be very strong as we can move forward in our lives as moms and as people. Plus, it's so great for young kids to have this in the home. It becomes part of a normal, natural, healthy family lifestyle.
And tell us, I'm aware myself, but for our watchers, tell us about some of the physical manifestations that we know that yoga can particularly help with for that wellness through the pregnancy and setting up for birth.
Yes. So are you asking me what we can, are you asking me specific, well, maybe I can just answer specific things that can help, for example,
some of the things that I have certainly seen, improvements for women during pregnancy is when it seems to improve their blood pressure, which it should, because you're dealing with stresses and you're de-stressing, and even the position and the lie of the baby, and certainly the woman mentally, as you say, with that connection of the baby. And actually, it was interesting that you made the comment that it's once the women start to feel like they're pregnant sometimes and start to show that they're pregnant is when they start going, oh, now I should probably be doing some things. And when do you, if somebody is, if we are in a situation of people going to classes and they're needing to pay for classes, when do you think would be the most optimum time to be starting? If perhaps, income is an issue. So
yeah, there's probably a couple of ways I want to answer that, but my favorite way to answer that, because I've been asked that for years, and I really believe this, and I did it myself, and that is, as soon as you learn that you're pregnant, I think that you should begin to go to a yoga class that's modified for pregnancy, and that actually is for pregnancy, if you can, if there's one available. And the reason for that is that we're not really pregnant for that much time in our life overall. So if we're only pregnant for 40 weeks, maybe one time, maybe 3 times in our life, or maybe 4 times in our life the most. So that's not very many weeks over the whole span of our life to be pregnant. And so why not go to a class, put yourself in a situation where you're getting the most support and information to help you in this very special and important process that's taking place in your body and in your life. That's really what I think. If you can take classes to prepare you to give birth, or to prepare you to become pregnant and then give birth, that would be wonderful. And people do that. In fact, I have a student right now that comes online, and she comes to my regular class, but I try to make sure that I'm weaving in yoga poses that are ones that help the whole body become more integrated and a little more soft, so one can connect with oneself, the nervous systems can settle down. We're regulating ourselves well before we're pregnant, so that when we're pregnant, we already have that tool of taking care of ourselves and grounding ourselves into our body, finding a way to be peaceful and more at ease. And then again, that helps the baby develop. And if our babies, if the new life coming into this world, if we can give them an optimal environment to develop in the womb, then they're going to be, I believe, more creative, healthier beings. And I think they'll help us find a way to create a more peaceful world. I really do believe that, Kathy. So I think all throughout, the reason that women don't come to prenatal yoga at the very beginning, especially you yogi women, is that you're connected to your yoga teacher. You already like the yoga class you're going to. You like the people that are there, whether it's online now or in the days when we can be together. And so you don't really want to leave that community and go to a prenatal yoga class, or many women don't like to. So those women generally wait until they feel, if they ever feel, like they really need something different than what's going on in those general classes, or their bodies actually need something different to support them. And that usually is when they're like bigger, or maybe even very close to giving birth.
Yeah, and that adapting that normal practice to, for those expanding bellies. And but also there's that wonderful comradeship when you are in classes that are specific to pregnancy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and those, it's so funny. So often I've heard women say over the years, that they're not really a girlfriend kind of person. And you think, look, I know you might feel that way right now, but honestly, honey, it's pregnancy and being a mum just changes that for so much of us. And those girlfriend friendships that you can start off with when you're all bellies together, and 20 years later, you're still friends because you have babies that are so similar in age that it's almost easier to relate to a stranger who becomes a friend that has a baby of a similar age than relate to your girlfriend who had her baby a year earlier than you, because you're in such different places. So I certainly would encourage all women, if you have an opportunity to come out of a general class and there is in your area or online available for you to go to a preggy class, and they're so good. They can so good. And then they go on to be the postnatal classes as well, right, when mum's got all their little babies. So if you were, I guess, if we're in a situation where somebody is really trying to choose what is the best thing for them to spend their money on, and is there a certain sort of gestation that you would feel is really advantageous if they could, I mean, ideally the whole pregnancy, but if that's not a practical situation, is there sort of a certain gestation cutoff where you go, oh, look, you really, really, really want to get started by this time that you see makes a difference? I would have thought probably around that 30, 32 weeks. It's such a mental transformation that goes on with women. And it really can help settle things down. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, when you were asking me the question or coming to the question fully, I was thinking if you want to save money, right? If it's economics and you're concerned, and that is a real concern, then my intuition is saying to me, well, come in the second trimester, maybe before 28 weeks, because at 28 weeks you're really tired, usually because you have you have more blood volume all of the sudden or pretty rapidly, and it's low in iron, so then you're a little bit low in iron just because you have more blood volume, then you're fatigued. So why I'm suggesting maybe coming in the earlier part of the second trimester so that you can learn some things, and then maybe if you can't continue, practice those things or learn what you can from the physical teacher that you're with, and then hopefully that'll inspire you to find some books. I have a couple of books I love that I recommend, and then maybe that will carry you through, and maybe if towards the very end if you feel like you can take a few more classes, maybe you can do that. I mean, if it's time and economics, I think what I'm trying to say is that I would want to encourage the mom to try to learn the subject a little bit, because once we learn yoga, then it's ours. Then we can practice it anytime. I mean, we are changing, evolving people all the time through all the stages of our lives, and even through the seasons within 1 year, and even with the 40 weeks of pregnancy, we're continually changing. But if we can understand some of the basics of yoga, then we can apply them to our bodies and
that's wonderful advice. So you're basically saying, look, if money is really tight, then maybe invest in even just a couple of classes around sort of that 28, 29 weeks, and you've learned, as you say, now the gift is yours. Now you've learned it. Do you have to have somebody in front of you telling you, no, you could. Now you can do that on your own.
It may inspire you to do some other kinds of self-learning, through a book or things that are free. Yeah, because a couple classes won't teach you everything, but it can help you. It's a start for your.
Absolutely, yeah. And now we've got a good question that's come in, and it's not from Marisa. It's from Mariska, for Marisa. I love that.
Okay,
same spelling, just adding a K. So some yoga studios recommend to start after week 12. Could you give some more reasons why you recommend to start straight away? What's your thoughts on that?
Yes. The reason that's recommended, I mean, my understanding of why that would be recommended is because in the first trimester, in the first 12 weeks of pregnancy, is when more miscarriages happen, more than any other time. And so you want to be careful during that time. And so you do need, that's why I suggest that you have a modified yoga practice from the very beginning. If you're doing yoga that is instruction-based, that it has a focus on alignment, on breathing, connecting with the body, adjusting your pace to be slower, even if you feel like you have lots more energy and can do lots more. If you do things that are very safe, then I believe it's safe to do from the very beginning of pregnancy. And I experienced that myself, and also my students have. But the reason that they often recommend not that is because it's a little safer overall, especially in the US. I don't know if you're in the US, you know, you're less of a liability after 12 weeks.
I think that you're right there. There's definitely, you know, liability thoughts coming into that. What I would say from a midwifery perspective on that is that, you know, 1 in 4 pregnancies does miscarry. And we would say generally it's sort of 1 in 4 that people are aware of, but I suspect it's more 1 in 3 naturally. And this is when can be, you know, a woman who basically has just had a rather late, rather heavy period, and they go, that was just a bit odd. It was probably a very early miscarriage. So generally speaking, you know, the body does that. You know, obviously some women are just incredibly unusually prone to that, but in general terms, this is the body doing a good thing. It's doing what it should do. There's something not quite right with that pregnancy, and if women are doing very gentle, lovey, you know, calm kind of yoga, I can't imagine how that could take a very healthy, normal early pregnancy to a miscarriage. But I would certainly question things like, you know, the hot, sweaty, you know, the yoga where you're really, you know, pumping the heart and pouring out the sweat and that sort of thing. No, I don't. Yeah, so it's probably a little understanding of really what style of yoga you're doing at that very early stage.
There's a lot of yoga out there. There's a lot of yoga, and there's a lot of women. And women are different from one to the next. So, so anyway, that's, there's a little bit of an answer, Marisa, for you.
Yeah. So as we're sort of winding up.
I wanted to say.
Please do.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry, I lost it. It had to do with
the different types of yoga.
It had to do with gosh, it had to do with miscarriages. A little bit. I think that maybe all that it was. Maybe I said it enough, but I lost my train of thought a little bit there. But I think that you do need to be. Oh, I know it was. There are some poses that you shouldn't do in the first trimester.
Right.
That is what I was thinking, to be clear. And for example, the Iyengar method of yoga, and he was a wonderful teacher, and his family is still teaching in India, but they recommend that you really don't do standing postures in your first trimester. I mean, there's varying information around yoga for pregnancy, and varying information around yoga in general. I like to do things that are very careful and cautious and slow and kind, but I also really like to teach to the people that are in front of me. Some women actually need more. And so when I can, I try to give them more, or try to give them what I'm sensing they need, or they're sensing it, and I'm trying to mirror that to them and help them, show them how to do it safely. Because if they are interested in yoga, then I want to show them ways that they can use it as a tool for them. Otherwise, they may go out and do things that I would think weren't as safe or as healthful as yoga is for pregnancy.
And do tell us a little bit more about the Yoga for Motherhood curriculum, and how is that work? How are you working that through the pandemic? I guess people can now do that online. So tell us more about that for both, because I imagine that obviously it's designed for the women who are pregnant, but we have so many health practitioners who are maternity specialists and birth practitioners, etc., as part of our followers. So I guess that could be potentially something that they could go in and learn to become teachers with as well.
Yes. So actually, Yoga for Motherhood is a prenatal teacher training program that is for people that either are interested in understanding more about yoga for pregnancy, or they actually want to become instructors, because by the end of the training, you are also able to register as a certified prenatal yoga instructor. I was teaching these 3 times a year before the pandemic hit, and I'm only just now moving it into a format that's online. So currently it hasn't been online. This program is about 100 hours, and it covers all the basic parts that are required with the United States Yoga Alliance credentials. Those credentials are also acknowledged worldwide. There are many more hours we could do, and so, and continue to study, but this 100 hours is the first level.
Fantastic.
That's what the Yoga for Motherhood is, yes.
Okay, so you're so obviously anybody that's now for those that are watching the webinar live or have registered for the webinar, we will be sending, or Zoom will be sending them an automated message tomorrow, and which will have some links on there as well of information. But for those that are watching this later down the track and who won't be receiving that, do you want to just explain your contacts as well, and your links of that information that they can get?
Sure. Currently, what you'll get tomorrow or very soon is a link to my website, which will give you access to free on-demand videos for pregnancy. And there's also some on there for when you're not pregnant. You can also, there's a few that would be good for non-pregnant bodies as well as pregnant bodies. So I combined some classes so that the whole household could do the classes. My website is marisatoreginoyoga.com, and I teach weekly online, like Zoom-like classes. Zoom-like classes means there's two-way video, so I can see you, you can see me. And then there's also weekly classes that I record, and you can watch them live, but you can only write in the chat. They can't see you. They're just one-way streaming video. So, and those classes are for pregnancy and postpartum period, but also there's classes for everyone, because I do like to teach yoga for everyone, so that because there's lots of moms that already have their babies like me, like you, Kathy, and you can still come to class with me. And as we keep going with the online format, I'll have the Yoga for Motherhood series and more things going on, as well as live at some point, live again in person.
Fantastic. And the
sorry, Kathy, probably the best way also to like interact with me, I think, is on Instagram, because I'm on Instagram all the time and I'll respond right away. And it's the same, Marisa Torregino Yoga on Instagram.
Brilliant. Okay, that's great, especially for our mums to be these days, because Instagram is a very popular medium for them. So that's, you're right where they are. So that's awesome. And what about just as we're sort of winding up, any particular comments that you want to add with regards to best practices during the pandemic versus, no, we weren't in a pandemic? How is that, apart from going virtual? Are there any other differences?
Well, I think that it's difficult to begin to do classes online. I think if anybody can get over the hump of having to be on the computer again, on another screen again, I think that if you can work through that a little bit, if you're interested, I think there's an incredible worldwide community to connect with because of the pandemic. And I think that that's beautiful. And I think that that's rare and brand new, and we don't know what that's going to lead to. But I think it's actually very, very positive. So with that, so we have access to one another through a screen, but actually there's real love, I think, exchange going on with everyone. And then you have that in your home. I mean, to be able to pull yoga or something as healthy and beautiful like as yoga, maybe there's something else you also have in your life, to be able to pull that into your home and have that be part of your normal everyday, and that your children are growing up with yoga as like a normal activity. I think that the world will change. I mean, the world is changing, and I think this way is a very positive mode that we're going. And so I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty happy about it, really. You know, just everything. With all the difficulty, I feel that the silver lining of the pandemic is that we can be in our homes differently, helpfully, hopefully, and then connect outward from there.
Yeah, you're so right. It's been amazing to see how people have adapted to the changes that of the positive aspects that they've seen and made permanent decisions of changes. You know, I know that I happen to be based in New Zealand, even though this is an international organization, and I'm sure, you know, some similar things are happening in other countries, that our regional house price sales are just going crazy. It's like suddenly people are going, so why am I living in the big smoke?
Exactly, yes, it's
Why am
true.
I doing this? You know, and yeah, it's been absolutely fascinating to watch. So it's been very tough on, you know, obviously on some of the businesses that who are in the center of downtown cities, and they've always serviced those community, and those communities have got a lot quieter. But of course, those living in the cities are just going, what am I doing? You know, and I've certainly had a lot of people, even like if we changed over from 2020 to 2021, there's certainly been a lot of comments I found of people going, you know, it's been a crazy odd year, but boy, it was kind of a cool year as well. You know, the fact that they've worked out they can work from home and it's not a big deal, and they don't have to drive in traffic, you know, 5 days a week or whatever it
And
is.
people
And
have time to cook. I think that's incredible. And people have time to be with their children more.
yeah,
And you know, there's positive and negative maybe to some of that, depending on your family life. But I think it's getting us all to be very real, see what the priorities are
yeah.
and what we need to change in our lives so that we can have more health and heal and be more connected to our family and the people we care about. And
And
yoga
just
is
like
actually one
we're
of the great practices to support that.
absolutely, and we those that have needed to change to be working from home, or you know, if their job has been a job that makes that physically possible or logistically possible, you know, we do tend to sort of leave that area set up as our place of work. You know, it might be the end of the dining table or whatever it is, and it's not like we pack it up and unpack it most of the time. It tends to sort of sit there, if you didn't already have an office. And we should be doing the same thing with our relaxation, as you say, of having our
Exactly.
place set up as well for getting into our own.
Yeah, getting quiet.
um,
Being
Look,
quiet.
it's been lovely speaking with you and hearing about you know, basically for our followers to be able to know that you exist, even, you know, that we can all be in touch, and that you've
Yes.
got these amazing things that you've got going on, and that our followers could become more knowledgeable themselves and even certified, you know, in prenatal um, yoga. So that's wonderful. Is there anything else that we have answered the questions that have come in, but is there anything else that you would like to close with before we wind up?
Are there no more questions? Is that what you're saying, Kathy? No more
Yeah.
questions? Um,
Anything you feel that we haven't covered off that you would like to finish
yes,
with?
I would. Yes, I'd like to finish if you don't mind, and if all of you watching now or in the future would like, let's end with the practice that we do in prenatal yoga class, which is a breathing practice. And so you can just sit where you are, either leaning back in your chair or a little bit forward from your chair so that you can sit tall on your own without leaning. Or you could even lay down. And then if you'd like to close your eyes, go ahead and close your eyes and begin to feel your whole body. And do this by being aware of the outline shape of you right now in your sitting position or reclining position. Be aware of yourself by gently noticing and feeling the outline shape of you. And from there, pull your attention inward. So if you're pregnant, you have an opportunity to connect more deeply with yourself, you, the mom, the woman, and also your baby who's within. If you're not pregnant and you're a woman and you've given birth before, you could bring in your children. Or if you're a woman or a man or combination and you're not having children or haven't had children and that's no plan, then you could consider your own self when you were little and in the womb of your mother. Feel yourself deeply and begin to be aware of your breathing and gently deepen the breath, extending the inhalation and the exhalation. Continue to feel the body, stay in the position that you're in, and be at ease. As much as you can, hold your position, but relax and be at ease, and gently deepen the breath. Noticing your inhalation and your exhalation. You could continue this for longer than we're going to do right now. This is something you can do on your own at any time. Right now, just allow the breath to come back to a normal, easy flow. This means that you're not trying to deepen your breath right now. Please continue to notice your breath, and maybe it stays deep, long, and slow, but maybe not. Just observe. Feeling the body, connecting to baby and yourself. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I hope that helps you to feel more grounded in your body, more connected to yourself, regulated and relaxed. The beginning of meditation.
That was a beautiful way to conclude. Just love it. We actually just put some theory into practice. And that's just namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, it's just wonderful. And thank you to those that were here live and those that will be watching later. And it's such a special community, and it's growing pretty rapidly. And it's our honor to be, organizing these connections. So thank you for taking the time. I know it's later in the evening there, and so we'll conclude it all and wish everybody a wonderful rest of your day and rest of your week. All right, bye everybody. Thank you, Marisa.
Bye. Thank you.